The rain had a way of making the city feel smaller, pressing everything closer together, as if the streets themselves were listening. Victor Hale stood beneath the wide awning of the Meridian Hotel, the kind of place where doormen remembered your name and umbrellas appeared before you realized you needed one. His tailored coat was dry, his shoes immaculate, his voice low and clipped as he spoke into his phone, eyes fixed on the blurred lights of traffic beyond the glass. "No, move the meeting," he said, irritation barely contained. "I don't care what Zurich thinks. We're not bleeding another quarter because someone hesitated." He paused, listening, jaw tightening. He had learned long ago that power lived in silence as much as in words. Around him, the city kept moving, taxis hissing through puddles, laughter spilling from the hotel bar, a violinist playing under the awning across the street for anyone willing to notice. That was when something small collided with his leg. Victor broke off mid-sentence. "I'll call you back," he said, and ended the call before the voice on the other end could protest. He looked down, expecting an apology, maybe a distracted tourist. Instead, he found himself staring at a pair of soaked sneakers and thin ankles reddened by the cold. A little girl stood there, water dripping from the hem of her sweater. It was yellow once, probably bright and cheerful, but now dulled by rain and wear. Her dark hair was tied back with a ribbon that had come loose, one side slipping over her ear. She stared up at him with eyes far too serious for her age. For a moment, Victor simply blinked, thrown off by the sheer unexpectedness of her presence. Children did not usually interrupt his world. They existed in photos on charity brochures, in carefully managed foundation events. Not here, not like this. "Sir," she said, her voice small but steady. She reached out, pinching the edge of his coat between her fingers, as if afraid he might disappear if she let go. "My mom didn't come home last night." The words cut through the ambient noise like a clean slice. Victor felt something inside him stall. Around them, no one seemed to notice. People hurried past, eyes down, phones up, each wrapped in their own urgent bubble. He glanced instinctively around the sidewalk. A prank, a setup. His security detail stood a few steps away, half hidden by the flow of guests, watching but not intervening. He had dealt with cons before. But there was no calculation in the girl's face, no practiced story. Just worry, raw and unfiltered. "Sweetheart," he said, crouching down despite the damp seeping into the knees of his trousers, "where's your father?" She shook her head immediately, gripping his coat a little tighter. "I don't have one. It's just me and my mom." Something in the way she said it, plain, factual, without self-pity, made his chest tighten. "What's your mom's name?" "Marisol," she answered. "She cleans offices. She always comes home before it gets dark. Even when she's tired, she promised." Victor noticed the backpack now, slung over her shoulders, the zipper broken, one strap mended with safety pins. It looked heavy for someone her size. "How long have you been waiting here, Lena?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then shrugged. "Since the lights came on." She pointed vaguely toward the street lamps. She said if anything ever happened, I should wait where there are people and lights. The instructions were heartbreakingly practical. Victor straightened slowly, scanning the area again, this time with a different lens. No frantic mother searching the crowd. No adult hovering nearby, pretending not to watch. Just rain, neon reflections, and a child standing alone beneath a billionaire's shadow. A guard stepped closer, uncertainty flickering across his face. Victor lifted a hand slightly. "Wait. Do you know where your mom works?" Victor asked. Lena nodded eagerly, relief washing over her features at the question, as if she'd been hoping someone would finally ask the right thing. She lifted her arm and pointed down the street, away from the hotel district and toward a darker stretch of buildings. "There, the big glass one with blue doors. She takes the bus, but sometimes she walks if it's late." Victor followed the direction of her finger. He knew the building. Most people like him did. An older office tower, recently sold, caught between renovations and neglect. He frowned. "Did you go to school today?" he asked. "No," Lena said softly. "I waited." The word carried weight. Victor felt an uncomfortable flicker of memory, waiting in a cold hallway as a child, listening for footsteps that didn't always come. He had buried those years under steel and success, but moments like this had a way of digging things up. He stood and slipped out of his coat, draping it around Lena's shoulders despite her immediate protest. "It's okay," he said when she shook her head. "I don't need it right now." She clutched it closed, swallowed, and nodded. Victor turned slightly toward his security. "I'm going to walk her," he said quietly. "Sir," one of them began. I said I'm going to walk her, Victor repeated, not raising his voice. The discussion ended there. He looked back at Lena and held out his hand. It felt absurdly large compared to hers. Can you show me the way? She slipped her fingers into his without hesitation, her hand cold and light, trusting in a way that both humbled and unsettled him. As they stepped away from the hotel's glow and into the rain-slicked street, Victor became acutely aware of the city around them, the cracked sidewalks, the shuttered storefronts, the way the lights grew fewer with each block. Lena walked close to him, occasionally skipping a puddle, occasionally glancing up to make sure he was still there. Sir, she asked after a moment. Yes, you're not mad, right? The question hit him harder than any boardroom confrontation ever had. No, he said honestly. I'm not mad at all. She nodded, satisfied, and kept walking. Behind them, the Meridian Hotel doors slid shut, sealing away a world of polished marble and predictable problems. Ahead lay something messier, quieter, and infinitely more important, and Victor Hale, for reasons he could not yet name, did not let go of the little girl's hand. Victor followed Lena as she led him down the narrow street, the rain now just a mist clinging to every surface. The city had grown quieter as they moved away from the hotel district. Streetlights flickered in the distance, their glow muted by clouds and drizzle. Lena's small hand fit perfectly in his, warm and tense, and he found himself adjusting his pace to match hers, careful not to rush her. The blue-doored building loomed ahead, its glass reflecting the dull gray of the overcast sky, imposing yet unfamiliar in the dim light. Victor had known many buildings in his life, towers, hotels, banks, but the weight of this one felt different. There was a quietness to it, a loneliness that resonated with the little girl clutching his hand. Here, Lena said, pointing to the slightly ajar door. She mops inside. She leaves the cart there when she goes home. I saw it yesterday. Victor's sharp eyes noted the janitor's cart parked awkwardly near the wall, a mop leaning against it, a jacket draped over the handle. It looked ordinary, unremarkable. Yet the air around it carried a weight he couldn't define, something urgent. He signaled a security guard who had followed discreetly from the street, but Lena tugged at his coat gently, almost protective. Wait, she said. Her voice was firm, commanding. Victor knelt down to her level. Do you know if she's in there now? She's always in the last office on the third floor, Lena replied. She said it's where she finishes her shift when the cleaning crew leaves. Sometimes the door locks accidentally. The words made his chest tighten. Locked doors, long nights, exhaustion, he could see it all clearly. He rose, signaling again to the guard, but Lena had already moved toward the stairwell. She ran, not recklessly, but with purpose, and Victor had no choice but to follow, his coat brushing against the damp concrete walls of the building. Inside, the stairwell was dimly lit, the fluorescent lights above buzzing faintly. Water dripped from the ceiling in slow, steady drops, hitting the floor with a hollow plink. Victor's shoes echoed loudly, a harsh contrast to the soft padding of Lena's steps ahead. He noticed her small backpack swaying against her back, a detail that made him simultaneously anxious and protective. The further they went up, the more the building seemed to close in around them, the smell of damp concrete, cleaning chemicals, and the faint tang of metal filling the stairwell. Mom, Lena called softly as they climbed. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the calm she had tried to project. Victor's eyes scanned every landing, every shadow, alert for any danger. He had faced hostile boardrooms, public scrutiny, and personal betrayals, yet nothing had prepared him for the tension of following a child through a dark, empty stairwell. There was a vulnerability here that no security protocol could cover. On the third floor, they found her. Marisol sat slumped against the wall, her cleaning uniform damp and rumpled, a mop leaning uselessly beside her. Her eyes fluttered open at the sound of Lena's voice. At first, there was confusion, a slow blink as if she couldn't quite place the world she was seeing. And then, recognition, and panic. Mom, Lena cried, rushing forward and throwing herself into her mother's arms. Victor stepped back slightly, letting the reunion unfold, careful not to intrude, though every instinct told him to act, to ensure she was safe. Marisol's hands trembled as they encircled her daughter. Her voice was hoarse, strained from lack of sleep and fear. Lena, you're safe. Yes, I was so worried, Lena sobbed, clutching her mother tightly. Victor knelt nearby, draping his coat over Marisol's shoulders. She looked up at him, eyes wide, exhausted, and slightly incredulous. Who are you? Victor inclined his head. Someone who saw you were in trouble. His voice was calm, but there was a weight to it, a firmness that carried authority without intimidation. Marisol blinked, taking a moment to register his words, her gaze flicking to the little girl who had led him here. She wouldn't wait, Marisol murmured, referring to Lena. She ran. I locked the door. Her words stumbled over themselves, a tangle of guilt and relief. Victor shook his head gently. You're both safe now. That's what matters. He watched Lena wipe tears from her cheeks, then look up at him with that same small but fierce expression that had drawn him out into the rain earlier. Sir, thank you, she said, for following me. The city outside remained indifferent, the faint hum of traffic a distant reminder that life went on, uncaring and relentless. But inside that stairwell, a small family huddled together, and Victor realized that sometimes influence and power were measured not in wealth or decisions but in the simple act of showing up when it mattered most. Moments later, the building's manager arrived, breathless and apologetic, followed by the security guard from the street. We're so sorry, ma'am, he said to Marisol. The door was stuck. Victor raised a hand, stopping the formalities. It's resolved now, he said, his gaze lingering on Lena and her mother. Make sure this doesn't happen again. Yes, sir, the manager stammered. Victor rose to his full height, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle over him, not the kind tied to boardrooms or balance sheets, but something raw and human. He turned to Lena, who was holding tightly to her mother now, still sniffing and trying to calm herself. You did the right thing, he said to her softly. Lena looked up, eyes wide and earnest. You didn't wait alone, you found help. Marisol, finally regaining her composure, looked at him with gratitude that needed no words. She was tired, shaken, and overwhelmed, but she understood that someone had noticed, someone had acted. Victor stepped back, letting the small reunion continue, and for the first time in a long while, he felt the absence of urgency that usually defined him. No phone calls, no meetings, no strategic decisions, just this quiet, raw human moment. He realized that the world he had built for himself, with its towers and holdings and endless obligations, had gaps that even money could not fill. And sometimes, all it took was following a little girl into a dark building to see the most important work of all. Later, as ambulances and security staff organized the building and ensured everything was safe, Victor lingered by the stairwell. Lena's mother held her daughter close, finally able to breathe without fear. The rain outside had slowed to a drizzle, dripping off ledges and pooling on the sidewalk. Victor's coat, now wet in parts, clung to him as he watched them, realizing that life's most significant moments were not negotiated in boardrooms but stumbled upon in quiet, unplanned encounters. Victor Hale, billionaire, power broker, man used to controlling everything, had learned that night something he could not schedule or predict. That sometimes, following a little girl into the unknown, and trusting her judgment, could change more than just the course of a single life. It could change the shape of your own. And for the first time, as Lena laughed softly with her mother, Victor smiled, a rare, unguarded expression, knowing he would never forget the little girl who had taught him to notice the world outside his gold towers.